12 o'clock on your Monday afternoon. Welcome in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head along with you. Terry Ford has made his triumphant return. He'll be along with me in just a few minutes as we have a lot to, discuss of what he missed in the past week. As it's been, the previous Friday since he was last in here. So we'll get his thoughts on what's been going on as we've obviously talked a lot of Olympics, but even more of South Carolina football as we are now in the midst of fall camp. 3 practices in so far. Media has been able to get out there and watch 2 of them up to this point as we try and learn, right, about this team that is more questions than answers at this point in time because of just how wide open so many of these spots are. And, when you talk about upside potential, when you talk about optimism for what this team can hopefully be, I think there is an excitement level that surrounds a team that has changed so much in one offseason, mainly due to the transfer portal, but also due to freshmen coming in as well. Because if you just take the team that went 5-7 a year ago and return most of those guys without really adding a whole lot to it, your optimism for the team getting better probably not going to be too high. Now, yes, there's still obviously the plenty of opportunity for development and individual player improvement as a whole, but across the board, I don't think it would instill a lot of confidence in you necessarily that the team's going to be that much better. But when you do go out and you address most, if not all, of your needs via the transfer portal, in addition to bringing in some high-level guys as true freshmen, there's reason to be excited. There's reason to think that, okay, they're going to be able to take these steps forward and be exponentially better in these areas, which is going to result in a better record, go into a bowl game, the whole 9 yards, whatever your line of acceptability, ends up being as far as this off season goes. So we'll see. Now, is there an opportunity that a lot of these guys that come in as transfers just don't end up popping? Sure. But I guess until you see it otherwise proven, you're going to want to believe the hype, right? And we certainly hope all these guys live up to the hype. We certainly hope this team as a whole is leaps and bounds better than it was a season ago, and we are finally talking about getting stability back under your feet a little bit. Not that last season was unstable necessarily, as we talked about. Even in the games that you lost, a couple things go differently here and there. You could probably pick up 1, maybe 2 or 3 more wins over the course of the entire season. Then you're talking about being, maybe a 7-6 or a 7-5 or something like that, which would have been a lot more acceptable in people's eyes compared to what 5-7 was last season. So we'll see. Again, so much changed, and we're not going to know the answers on a lot of things really until toe meets leather on August 31st against Old Dominion. Even then, that's only game number 1 against a lesser opponent that Carolina shouldn't have a problem beating. So even with that, there's still going to be a lot of questions coming away from that game that I think we're going to have about this team because we're not going to have seen them against a super high-quality opponent, at least as of yet up to that point. You're going to learn something in week number 2 against Kentucky, and you're really going to learn something week number 3 against LSU. So opportunities in these early couple weeks of the season to really see this full team on display, see the talent level, and see what, if anything, they're going to have for their stiffer and tougher competition, the likes of Ole Miss and Alabama, Missouri and Clemson and teams like that as the season does wear on. But until we get to then, we're going to be gleaming off of the little nuggets of information that we do get coming away from camp. Whether it be what Wes and Chris observe going out there and viewing practice, what the coaches say in their media availabilities as we now get in to camp. We're going to be hearing from them each and every week, getting updates, hopefully not too many injuries, and just kind of going from there as we, again, kind of piece together what exactly this team is going to be over the course of this season. And when you look at, like I mentioned, going out there and rebuilding in a lot of different ways, these various rooms via the transfer portal, it shows you kind of the thin line between winning and losing, especially in a conference like the SEC. I want to go back. On Friday, Coach Beamer was on Jim Rome's show, and he talked exactly about that thin line between winning and losing, especially in the SEC.
better. And that's what I did after 21, after 22, and then certainly after 23. And you look at ways to adjust and get better, but also realizing that it's a thin line and in between winning and losing, especially in this conference, and realizing that we weren't that far off. And we're very fortunate, Jim, that we bring back a ton of leadership. We got a lot of guys that have decided to come back for another year here at South Carolina when they could have gone other places, either NFL or transferring to other schools. Guys that are going into their fourth or fifth year of being a part of this program. So when you bring back a lot of veteran leadership like that, it excites you. But, for me, it was just making sure that our players understand that, one, the way we finished last season or the way we played overall is not acceptable. And we have a much higher standard here at South Carolina. But also, let's realize that we're not that far away. And every single season, it's a play here, play there. And that's the difference in a great year and just an okay year. And we need to make sure that we're doing the things to make sure that we are on the right side of those plays this season and can have the year that we want.
And Terry, as we bring you in here, welcome back, by the way.
Hey, I would have been here sooner, but the women's beach volleyball came on. I got distracted.
Oh, I know it's your favorite sport.
I love that sport. It's my favorite Olympic sport.
We've been analyzing it very closely all week long while you've been gone, trust me. But Beamer brings up a really good point there. You don't have to overhaul the entire team. What you had last year wasn't drastically far away from being a winning type of team. You just needed to change a few things here and there, rebuild a couple different rooms to hopefully put yourself back on the right track this upcoming season.
Well, look, we went over. We lived it last year. We talked about it every Monday and every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays. And every game, there wasn't a game where they didn't have an opportunity to make plays to either turn the momentum of a game, take the lead in a game, get themselves back in position to possibly win a game. There was always moments in every game. Yeah, Tennessee, you look at the final score, you go, ooh, no. Rattler's pick six at the end of the half was huge. Then there were times in the third quarter that South Carolina had some opportunities to do some things they couldn't do it, and then you see the score, how it ends up. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Missouri game, they spent the second half kicking field goals. But they were moving the ball. The North Carolina game, they spent the entire second half in Tar Heel territory. They just, in big plays, Spencer Rattler just kept getting sacked.
Right.
The A&M game, that was a one-score game in the third quarter. So, I mean, you go through all of these games, even if you look at the final scores, those games had moments.
Sure.
Then South Carolina, to Shane's point, it was a play here and a play there that could have changed momentum or given you a lead or prevented the other team from taking a two-score lead, and you just couldn't make the plays.
Right.
You didn't have enough playmakers last year. Let's just call it what it was, to be blunt. You didn't have enough playmakers last year. And you didn't have enough depth either. So hopefully the depth is fixed because it feels like a deeper team, right?
Sure.
Now, hopefully there's some playmakers on this team that can step up and in those big moments, unlike last year, can make those plays. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, when you've brought in as much talent and as much experience as you have via the transfer portal, the upside potential of this team is very, very high. It doesn't mean they're going to go out there and win 6 or 7 games going back to bowl game, but you have plenty of reason to believe that it's going to be the case because you have addressed so many of these needs in the offseason.
You feel like defensively they found something in November, right? Mm-hmm. And look, Clayton's a very smart guy. And you think they'll continue down that path with better players. They have better players on defense this year. They just do.
Right.
And they're veteran guys, they're experienced guys, and you add in a fancy 5-star in Dylan Stewart coming off the edge. You got a couple of linebackers that are 4-stars that people really like. So you have some youngins to go with all this experience, and you feel like this defense is going to be good. There's one question mark on the whole defense. That's corner. Mm-hmm. That's it. Who's going to play across from O'Donnell Fortune? So you feel like this defense kind of got their way in November last year, and you hope that momentum will keep going. Offensively, we've been saying it all the time. This thing goes as the offensive line and Lenore Sellers go. Mm-hmm. Because if the offensive line can hold their own, South Carolina should be able to run the ball, right?
Right.
And that could be the key to a lot of really good things. But it comes down to your offensive line. Then when Sellers has to make plays in games, because last time I checked, the quarterback thing's kind of important.
Usually.
This isn't like, the old days where, hey, McElroy, just turn and hand the ball off. Quarterbacks have to make plays now. And so can Sellers make plays when it's time to make plays? So that's really, it feels like almost that's where everything ends up, because your biggest question marks are on offense, and the biggest question mark is, can your offensive line be decent? And then can your young quarterback with all this ceiling and potential, can he turn that into production?
Right.
So that's really, but yeah, to your point, would I be surprised if they won 6 or 7 games? Or I think they'll win 6. Would I be surprised if they won a couple more? No. I think it's there. But there's no guarantee it's just because you think it's there, there's no guarantee we're going to see it, right?
Well, and I know people are probably asking, why are we talking about the same things over and over again? Because we don't know.
We don't know
We're not
anything.
going to know until we see it on the field. We can only speculate up to this point and go off of the bits of information that we get, whether it be what we've seen in practice, what we hear from coaches, and because that's all we got.
Well, it's funny. You were talking with Jack during the extra point, and Jack says, we get to see 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I get it. Everybody does that in some way, shape, or form, college, NFL. You get X amount of minutes, they kick your butt out, and then they do the real stuff. They don't want you to see.
It's an eighth of the total practice?
Yeah, they go, media out of here. Okay, let's do the stuff we really want to do now. Come on, everybody, get together. Because they're not going to show you anything.
They're at least nice enough to not just be stretching while you're there.
Oh, yeah, because there are, okay, you get 15 minutes, 14 of it was calisthenics.
Exactly.
Thanks, love those jumping jacks. You guys are fantastic.
They took a water break for 5 minutes during that. That was
Right.
fantastic.
So they're not going to show you anything they don't want to show you,
right.
Obviously. So you're getting only 15 minutes, and you're not getting much of anything.
Yeah.
And I understand it's not a criticism, it's the way it is. So there's only so much we can even blather about, right? Like you guys were talking about, there were 17 kick returners and punt returners. Mm-hmm. Okay, so out of all that, they're trying to obviously run a rotation of guys out there to see who could be the guy or the guys. But that's really, that's kind of what you're getting right now.
Yeah.
So we are talking about the same things because those are things. And we don't know who the going to be starting wide receivers are going to be. We don't know how the offensive line, besides for Sean Lee, who's the other 4 starters. You want to give it a shot? Good luck.
26 more days.
Rocket Sanders will start at running back if he's healthy.
Yep.
Lenore Sellers will be your starting quarterback. You know 4 starters, I think, on offense. Lee, Simon, Sanders, and Sellers.
I think it's a pretty safe bet, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
On defense, even you have a pretty good idea either who's going to start, who's going to get a lot of playing time on defense, except for one corner spot.
I was going to say most spots on defense are rotational anyway. Mm-hmm. So, most guys are going to play. We just don't know how much.
That's what it is. What's the snap count going to be?
Right.
We know a lot of dudes are going to take the field on defense. It's just how they're going to rotate them through.
Right.
But offense, we got nothing. We've absolutely got nothing. So we just keep going. We don't know. And any little nugget of information you get, you run with.
We hope Beamer or Loggins or somebody slips up and tells us a little too much.
Wouldn't that be nice? Just Shane go nuts.
Just give him the truth serum and be like, just tell us,
right,
what's the deal?
The Falker truth serum?
Exactly.
Yes. All right, we'll come back in. Speaking of the unknowns, Mike Furry, the wide receiver coach, talking about having so many unproven guys and unproven the fact of they're not proven at South Carolina or in the SEC. So we'll hear what Coach Furry says about that coming up. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We're running up until 3 on the game. Halftime show. Terry Ford and Tyler Head here on the game. So we hang out here. Olympics all over the TV. 3-on-3 tournaments going. So that looks like a good time. The 3-on-3.
It does. Haley Van Lit's playing for the American women's team.
Nice. Look, full court's full court, and full court obviously is the most fun. But half court, I love 3-on-3, man.
Well, I mean, that's what most people are probably playing down at the rec center in the YMCA, right? You're looking at that like, I could do that.
Threes are cool.
Yeah.
I mean, 3-on-3 is fun because 2-on-2 is really like sort of like almost like two games of 1-on-1 at the same. But 3-on-3, It's like almost like you're incorporating a lot of stuff from full court, but it's half court. But, I always love like people who play 3-on-3 who go, man, I think I do more damn running 3-on-3 half court than I do full court.
I was going to say with 3-on-3, there's at least a little bit of mixing and matching what you can do with, pairings and stuff like that. With 2-on-2, it's like, well, I guess I'll cover the other guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like okay, I guess I'll set a screen.
There's no zone in 2-on-2.
2-on-2, it's like, okay, I guess we'll just pick and roll all day. What do you say? Or you try to beat your guy 1-on-1 and I'll stand over here. But yeah, 3-on-3 is fun, man. I like me some 3-on-3. So that I like that addition to the Olympics. The 3-on-3.
Yeah, it's cool. I didn't know that was in addition to the Olympics. I feel like I discover a new Olympic sport every single day. We're watching clay shooting earlier on today. I'm like, all right, I guess this is an Olympic sport.
By the way, is there anything better than the Turkish guy?
Oh my God! Now that was target shooting.
Yes,
they had clay shooting this morning.
Oh, the clay shooting is like pole.
Yeah, the pole.
Pole.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a movie. You ever heard of History of the World with Mel Brooks?
No, I've not.
Well, it's Mel Brooks doing, funny skits and all these different moments in history. And they're doing the French Revolution before, because that's when, Marie Antoinette and everything didn't end well for all of them.
Right.
They're doing the French Revolution or whatever. And and the king is ski shooting peasants. Pull. Wow. If you see it, it's pretty funny.
Okay.
Politically incorrect today, but back then pretty funny in the 80s.
As the best movies were.
Exactly. So anyway, that Turkish guy was great. In the target shooting.
Yeah, it just looked like he rolled out of bed and said, you know what, I think I'll be in the Olympics today.
It looked like he was a dude in the stands that just stepped out.
Here's the thing. He got a silver medal to not raise suspicions.
I know.
He's probably a hitman.
No doubt. And he just needed a cigarette.
Yeah.
And a cup of coffee in his other hand. I mean, the hand in his pocket, he's just tearing it up.
And all these they had the glasses on.
Oh, yeah.
And, they're all like standing at these weird positions and angles, and he just walks up.
He's standing there. He's got his shorts on, his T-shirt says turkey spelled wrong. He's just firing. He was great. Him and the pole vaulter who lost.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. That's a fun part of the Olympics is, yes, we honor Simone Biles for how great she's been.
Right.
Katie Ledecky for, how great she's been. These great athletic moments like Lyles in the 100 winning in a photo finish. The disappointment of Richardson where everybody thought she'd win the gold, but she won the silver because, she legit got beat by, it wasn't like somebody came out of the stands to beat her. That was a legit loss to a high-level sprinter.
Right.
But we always have a couple things that we leave the Olympics with that are just nobody saw that.
And we still have, 6 more days to go?
And the Turkish guy shooting and the pole vaulter right now are sitting at the top of that list.
It's hard to beat.
All right, anyway. All right, Mike Furrey, the wide receiver coach with the Gamecocks, talking to the media. And Mike was discussing the idea you got a lot of guys in this wide receiver room, guys that have done it in other places through the transfer portal, but guys who haven't done it at South Carolina or / done it in the SEC. Plus, you have, guys coming back from last year. So you've got a mix of unproven wide receiving talent, but there is talent.
Right.
Here's Mike Furrey talking about having lots of unproven guys. Is it a positive or a negative?
Yeah, I think it's a positive. I think sometimes when you have too many guys coming back that have been around, especially in a competitive room like we have, sometimes you can get comfortable and And now with guys it's so refreshing that you got a lot of guys that new faces, or you got the freshmen coming in that both of them, DeBron and Mazio, that we're here in the spring and kind of like an acclimation, right? But now they're in and they know the playbook and they know what we're asking them to do and practice and all that good stuff. So now they get a chance to kind of come out and be comfortable and work their tail off and be competitive. And I think it's healthy. I think it's really healthy. So and it's exciting. We'll find out here as we get going over the next couple weeks.
And it is exciting because you got a lot of guys. That's the way you look at it. I mean, you got dudes who have done it on different levels with different schools, and now you see how you can apply their skill set to this football team, this offense, in this league. And one of the guys that everyone's talking about is that Nick Harbor fella. Mm-hmm. And here is Mike Furrey talking about what needs to be done for Nick Harbor to reach his vast potential.
Yeah, I don't know if it's unlocked. I think when you look at any of the guys, I think it's developed, right? I think it's just guys learning how to play the game, being comfortable with what we're asking them to do, becoming more confident in what we're asking them to do, become more consistent in what we're asking them to do. And I think that's all part of growth. I don't think that's people being locked into things they can't and can't do, or can and can't do. I just think when you look at him and some of the other guys in the room, they got to play ball, right? They got to play ball, and I think these next 3 weeks are going to be really neat for him and for a lot of the guys, just to see how they develop, see how they pick stuff up. You don't play as fast as you can when you're thinking about a lot of stuff, and we all know he can run. We know there's a lot of guys in our room that can absolutely run, but you'll be at your fastest when you know what you're doing. And I think getting to that point is part of that development, and I think that's what I'm excited about, to see these guys get to that point.
I mean that's the thing, right? Is who's going to step in and grab the opportunities? And it's there for everybody. Mm-hmm. We've talked whether it's Larvadain, Brown, coming in from the transfer portal. Is it going to be Harbor or Stevenson? Is it going to be a Bennett as a freshman? Who's going to jump and grab those opportunities? Because there's a lot of snaps there for 2, 3, 4 guys to take advantage of.
There are, in addition to the guys coming in from various places. Coach Furrey's a new wide receivers coach here. Mm-hmm. Last year was Justin Stepp, so he doesn't have this, preconceived notions about any of these guys because he hasn't worked with them before. And yeah, you had a little bit of time in spring practice, but you add in Nick Harbor, you add in Devon Campbell, Vindarius Jacobs. You got 3 new key guys coming into this room that could completely change what he maybe thought about it going into the fall.
Now, Campbell and Jacobs are interesting because Jacobs has a lot of athletic abilities. He's very raw.
Mm-hmm. He was a 4-star kid coming out of high school.
And just really at Florida State didn't really get a chance to get any run because they had a couple guys in front of him who were really good. And then you have Campbell. That's the big, tall, rangy wide receiver we're talking about with big catch radius, jump balls, throw it to him downfield, red zone guy. So here's Coach Furrey talking about Campbell and Jacobs.
The biggest thing is just kind of you get a chance to walk around him or see him in the building. You look at Vindarius, and he's a wiry athlete that's got a confidence to him and a swag to him that's I think really healthy. And then you got a Delvon that's a legit 6'2", 6'3", 220-pound guy that everything about him just speaks that he's a strong individual. Runs strong, I'm sure, catches the ball strong, the whole 9 yards. And so, but when you're around them, you can sense that they're football players. And I think that's why we recruited them, and that's why we brought him in, and they've checked the boxes on all that so far.
Jacobs is very interesting. Again, got a lot of high ceiling with that guy. And is he a guy that could develop? Mm-hmm. Everything works for him, and all of a sudden you're seeing that guy get a lot of snaps where you're like, oh, that's the one that ends up stepping up. Because he, again, 4-star kid coming out of high school, just didn't get his opportunities last year.
And he could be a little bit of a longer play as opposed to a guy like Campbell who's truly coming in with 1 year of eligibility. It's like if he doesn't pop this year, that's it. Where Jacobs could be somebody that you could kind of bring along a little bit over time.
Larvadain's got 1 year, but Brown's got 2, if I'm not mistaken. Brown has 2 years. So you got some guys here who this is it. This is their final year. So it's a very interesting mix of guys, and you roll the footballs out and see who takes advantage of the opportunities.
Right.
So there's a lot of guys there, though. All right, just a little bit on the wide receiver room with Mike Furrey, and obviously we'll spin back to that in time. Shane was on the Jim Rome show. You heard Tyler play a cut of that. We're going to circle back. One thing we haven't talked about a lot is Mike Shula.
That's right.
Let's talk about Mike Shula, the former Alabama head coach, now an analyst at South Carolina. Jim Rome asked Shane about Mike Shula, so we'll get Shane's his thoughts on the value of Coach Shula. That's coming up. Halftime show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head. We're rolling till 3 on the game. I know what we're talking about is Carolina football and the Olympics a little bit. And you got that the water polo is rolling now.
Listen, out of all the sports that are probably the most challenging, water polo might be at the top of the list because swimming's hard enough, but swimming and catching and throwing a ball, as well as like defending, because they're locked up with each other, kicking each other.
I was going to
all
say
that kind of stuff.
I forget how many years ago it was that I saw, God knows why, but I was watching something and they were talking about this water polo.
Yeah.
And it was a former player, and he's like, you have no idea what goes on under the water.
Yeah, you just think, you're just swimming and throwing the ball. Like,
They're kicking the snot out of each other, by the way.
They got that camera under the water, and they're just mutilating each other.
It's crazy. And, by the way, they're treading water.
In the deep end, by the way.
Right.
Their feet aren't on the ground.
Right, this is not the kiddie pool. They're in the deep end, they're treading water, and they're beating the crap out of each other under the water. It's a crazy sport. It's not like right now they're showing one guy's trying to post up another guy, and what they're doing to each other is an assault in like 46 states.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's a felony. All right, anyways, we've been talking some Olympics as well, but South Carolina football, switch gears a little bit. Shane Beamer was on with Jim Rome, which I find interesting. And Shane, by the way, let's just real quick. We're going to have Shane talk about Mike Shula.
Yes.
Let's be honest. How many members of the South Carolina coaching staff do you think when Jim Rome was looking at the list, did he know who they were?
He probably remembers Dow Loggins from being on like the Bears or something. That's probably.
And then he saw the last name Shula. Hey.
Oh, Shula. I know that guy.
Is he related to Don?
Great family.
Love that steakhouse. All right, here's Shane on the Jim Rome Show talking about the offensive analyst, Mike Shula.
Yeah, he's been great. He's a great coach, obviously, but even better person. He's really been good. There's a lot of, this from covering sports for so long. I mean, there's a lot of lonely chairs in this football program. One's the head coach position, and the other one's the offensive coordinator. And when you're in those chairs, there's a lot of it always helps to have other people around you that have been in that role and know what it's about. And Dow Loggins is our offensive coordinator, longtime NFL offensive coordinator. But to be able to add someone like Coach Shula to that room to just, have ideas and be a sounding board. He's worked with quarterbacks. So to work with our quarterbacks closely has been huge. And then we've added some other staff members around him as well, and really like the group that we've had and feel like there's no question that we're better as a program right now than we were last year at this time. Nothing against anyone that's not here, but from a personnel standpoint with the players and then just overall staff, I love where we're at right now.
Always like, Oh, man. Jim Rome. We always do this. It's human nature. Like if a guy is a head coach, he's not a great head coach. We just look at them from the prism of being a head coach, right?
Sure.
That's just what we do.
Sure.
And like Mike Shula, you go, yeah, you're a real great head coach at Bama for those 3 or 4 years. Yeah, that was great. But if you look at his work outside of that,
well, you don't get to be a head coach without being a good position coach or coordinator or something along those lines first.
I mean, he's a guy he's an offensive coordinator. He's been a quarterback coach in 2 different, how many different stops? 3, 4 different stops in the NFL. He's been, like I said, he's been a coordinator and a quarterback coach multiple places. I'm looking at the resume right now. Offensive coordinator in Tampa Bay. Back in the mid to late 90s, quarterback coach with the Dolphins. After things didn't work out at Bama as the head coach, he's a quarterback coach with the Jags, quarterback coach with the Panthers, on 2 different occasions, by the way.
Yeah.
Offensive coordinator with the Giants, offensive coordinator, quarterback coach with the Broncos, quarterback coach in Buffalo in 22 and 23. Look, he's a guy that's worked as an assistant coach and a coordinator
Right.
multiple times. So, and look, forget if he was a great coordinator. I'm not even going into that. So let's see what his offense is. No, he's a guy that understands and knows offense. He's worked with quarterbacks. He understands like your concepts and how you want to put them into action.
And that time period that he was the coach at Alabama, he hadn't even turned 40 yet when he took over the head coach. He was still relatively young in the coaching sense, and 20 more years of experience since then. Who knows how much more he's added to his repertoire.
Right. I mean, that's the point. He's an analyst. He didn't come in here as the OC.
Right.
He's an analyst who has been an offensive coordinator in multiple spots. He's been a quarterback coach. He can help a guy like Dow Loggins because he's been around in the NFL for so long. He obviously coached in college.
Mm-hmm.
He can be a nice sounding board. He can be another voice in the room of experience about, well, you know what? I ain't gonna lie to you guys. When I was in Jacksonville, I mean, there's so many different ways he can help you as an analyst that just makes his experience, there's nothing negative about that experience.
Yeah, and that's the value of having so many different guys in this coaching staff that have some form of head coaching experience, whether it be in college, whether it be at different levels up to this point, even various levels within college. It just brings different ideas to the table. And again, especially when you're talking about on offense and what this new offense is going to be, having different perspectives from a Shula, from a Sean Elliott coming over from Georgia State, I think it's only going to help this entire unit be better as a whole.
Well, you have guys. Okay, you have Shula was an ex-head coach. Furry was a head coach. Elliott was a head coach. So you have three guys who have been head coaches, right? Mm-hmm. You've got, Shula was a coordinator.
Yeah.
Blackwell was a coordinator. I'm trying to see who else I'm trying to run everybody off the top of my head. You've got guys who have done.
Well, and Furry was head coach at Limestone as well.
Right. That's why Furry was a head coach. So was Elliott. You got Shula, who was a head coach. So you got four. Add Beamer in there. You got four guys who've been a head coach. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you got coordinator. Blackwell's a coordinator. Loggins coordinator. Shula coordinator. So you got three guys who are offensive coordinators. I mean, it just you got all. As long as everybody understands that they're not that anymore.
Right.
And everybody's good with what they are now.
Understand your assignment.
Exactly. Know your role. Do your job. As long as everybody's cool with all that, then this could be a real benefit to have that much experience in a room, understanding that you only have one cook in the kitchen as a head coach, one cook in the kitchen as the offensive coordinator. As long as everybody understands that,
right,
and they're funneling toward all that, it could be nothing but a positive. But it's very interesting.
For sure.
I'm also, Shane, when he was on Jim Rome the other day, talking about a high sense of urgency at South Carolina. Let's get to cut six and hear what Shane says about urgency this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think it's just that. It's nothing that we've really talked to him about. Obviously, there's a high sense of urgency here. There's high expectations. We fell short of that last season. We acknowledge that. But ever since our guys came back in January, they've had a great hunger and a great purpose about themselves. I mean, it's just the way that they've worked. And obviously it's Debo, but if you look around, the rest of our defense, the whole secondary returns. We lost one corner to the NFL, Marcellus Dallas with the Patriots, but every other defensive back returns. You look at our linebacker core, the two of our starters from last season are back. We've added two freshmen, so the core group and two transfers, they return. Our defensive tackle position, our top four defensive tackles from last season, they all came back. You look at our offensive line, we've got two offensive linemen that have been in this program since 2020. They're back. So it's just Luke Doty, who I mentioned earlier, he's back. So there's a lot of guys that have invested a lot into this South Carolina football program over the last 4 or 5 years that are very hungry, have high expectations, and they expect to compete for championships, and we acknowledge that and working towards that each and every day.
Let's talk about that coming back. We do our Firehouse Subtext the hour as well as 803-404-6100. Is there a sense of urgency this year? Should there be a sense of urgency besides the normal every year sense of urgency of you want to win as many games as possible? Is there a sense of urgency with this program this year? We'll get into that next. And also your text on the Firehouse Subtext line 803-404-6100, our text of the hour. That's coming up next. Also, before we roll on out of here, Ultimate season ticket giveaway back again this year. One winner will get season tickets to all South Carolina home football, baseball, women's, and men's basketball games. Just go to 1075thegame.com. Just look for it in a little clicky, media rolling thingy. When you see the ultimate season ticket, click on it, fill out the little form, hit submit, and you're in. It's that simple. We will do the drawing at our summer golf tournament. It is the ultimate season ticket 2.0 from the Men's Clinic of South Carolina and here on the game. We'll come back. Firehouse Subtext the hour. Should there be a sense of urgency this year with South Carolina football? That's next. Halftime show here on the game. Oh, time for our Firehouse Sub text of the hour. We'll start there and then get to the, should there be a sense of urgency this year in South Carolina, more than just the usual every year sense of urgency you feel in the SEC? All right, what do you got on the text line?
Yeah, real quick, Chad's asking about the commitments from over the weekend. We had 3 prospects hopefully committing to South Carolina. We only got one, Kendall Daniels Jr., the 4-star safety out of Virginia. Both Jared Smith and Jalen Gilchrist did decide to go elsewhere, but South Carolina did get one of the 3 guys, so another 4-star to add to the 2025 class.
Yeah, I mean, they thought they might get 2, right? And they didn't. One kid decided to stay home.
Yeah, and it was Smith who was down between South Carolina and Maryland, and I believe decided to stay home and go to, or excuse me, Gilchrist decided to stay home and go to Maryland.
Yeah, and a lot of people thought South Carolina would get Gilchrist.
Yeah.
So, but still, you got one. You got a 4-star kid.
Well, we figured you were up there making some last-minute pitches.
I was trying. I was working on it. It's like...
You're the reason Beamer's been so good in the DMV. You just like that special pipeline connection.
I'm trying to help.
You're the bag man.
I'm here to help. That's right. I'm the bag. That's right.
It's like, why does Terry make so many trips back and forth to Baltimore?
It's really weird. A lot of traveling to the DMV. All right. So, and we appreciate the text, like always, 803-404-6100. Okay. So, should there be a sense of urgency this year, more than your natural sense of urgency that is life in the SEC? I feel like the only thing you can say sense of urgency is if you're Shane Beamer, last year was unacceptable to you. You can talk about the close, the closest between winning and losing and all that, and it's so thin, and I agree, but you did go 5-7. Mm-hmm. And you made it known to your players that this wasn't acceptable, this isn't who we are, and we're not going to accept it.
Yeah.
And so you have a sense of urgency, I guess, to get yourself turned back around to the momentum you had in the first 2 years.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to stack a 5-7 with another 5-7.
You get a mulligan, right? Yeah. At a place like South Carolina, you can afford to have a little bit of a dip. Now, you got to get right back on track and get yourself moved back in the right direction. Because like you said, go 5-7 again or 4-8 or something like that. Okay, now the heat's going to turn up on your seat for 2025. We're not there yet. But again, you had 1 year. You can't make it. You can't let it happen again.
Right. If you get back to a 6-win season, you go back to a bowl game. Now you feel like, okay, you're back in the right direction. You had a bunch of question marks, and in a year where you had a lot of question marks, you got back to a bowl game.
Right.
So now you've basically, not that this is why you do it, but you bought yourself a couple years now.
Sure.
But if you go another 5-7, now, like you said, hey Shane, have a seat. Let's talk. No, I'm good. Why? Yeah. It's kind of hot.
I don't want to burn myself.
Yeah. Had to go to the urgent care earlier.
Yeah. But again, we're not there. I know a lot of the national perception. Ooh, Beamer's in trouble going into this year. He's not.
I like I said, when I was at SEC Media Days, I was surprised that a few of the national guys, talked to me about that. I'm like, and I said, no, I think he's fine. But if they don't go to a bowl game this year, then 2025 is a different conversation.
Right.
But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting that a few of them had that perspective of it.
We've become so inclined to that now, where if you don't come in and just immediately make a huge impact, you're getting pushed out. I mean, we're talking about Billy Napier get pushed out the door before the end of year 3 at Florida if things go sideways. That's just kind of become the new thing with college football. But again, in a place like South Carolina, you can have a little more leeway. There's
patience, and plus the first 2 years you exceed your expectation. That's what to look. I know we need stuff to talk about today. I get it. And hot seats start conversation like this. Look at this. Sense of urgency started a conversation. I understand why we do it. I just think we've kind of lost perspective. And I know the transfer portal, we see 1-year turnarounds and all this other mess all the time. I get it. But still, you can't forget what's happened. And I'm not talking about Shane Beamer, any coach. You have 2 good years or 2 years where you exceed expectation. Then you have a year that isn't what anybody was hoping for.
Right.
You still can't forget the 2 years you exceeded expectation.
Exactly. And as we've talked about, if you reordered these things, we're telling a much different story about this team being on the upward trajectory of being one of the better programs in the SEC.
Let's do this. Let's start 5-7, go 6-6 or 7-6. 5-7, 7-6, 8-5.
We're probably penciling them in as a dark horse playoff team.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's just the way the different way it goes. You know what I want to do next hour? Because we talk about the sense of, let's go through the SEC real quick, and we'll go sense of urgency, huge expectations, hot seat, or you're still in honeymoon time.
Ooh, I like that.
Let's do that in the
Let's do
next
that.
hour with the SEC coaches. Also, don't forget our greatest moment in Gamecock history since 2000. The final poll is rolling, by the way. It's not even close.
We had some very debatable lists of things that were paired up against each other last week. This got very interesting.
Right now, the 2010 College World Series title over UCLA is far and away winning at 62%. And second is the upset of Bama in 2010.
That was a popular one.
Then you have the College World Series title against Florida in 11. The women's first championship is sitting in fourth right now. 380 votes, almost 2,900 views. It's going to go all week, and we'll talk more about it before 3 here on The Game.
Welcome back in hour number 2 of the halftime show. Tyler Head and Terry Ford along with you on this Monday. Continuing to count down the days until we see football. 26 days from South Carolina and Old Dominion squaring off in week number 1 at Williams-Brice Stadium. Making our way through this conversation that Coach Beamer had on Friday with Jim Rome on his show, which I believe is exclusive to Twitter now as part of his new contract. About this South Carolina football program as we approach the start of the season. And, of course, you kind of live and die by what happens with your quarterback. And we've heard Beamer talk plenty about Lenore Sellers from a very local perspective, but it is always interesting to hear his answer to the question, much like at Media Days a couple weeks ago, when it comes to talking about Sellers from a more national sense with these guys that aren't as ingrained with this program each and every day like we are. So when Jim Rome asked, Shane Beamer about the excitement around Lenore Sellers here for his first season as a starter, or at least expect to be the first year's starter, here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I'm really excited about him. Love the rule in college football where freshmen can, or any player can play in a certain number of games, 4 games or whatnot, and still save a redshirt year. So we were able to get Lenoris into some games last season. He played in Furman, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, maybe one more last season, and performed well when he was able to get in the game. Which has us excited. But then, he was able to sit behind Spencer and learn from Spencer for a year, went through spring practice and really was impressive in the spring and has had a great summer. So that whole quarterback room in general excites us. Lenoris is kind of the returning guy that has the most experience, but we brought in Robbie Ashford, who has started SEC games at Auburn. And really brings a unique element to that room. We brought in a transfer, Davis Bevel, a freshman, and Dante Reno. Luke Doty, who's been around our program since 2020, is working as a quarterback and receiver both. So like that room, inexperienced in a lot of ways, but very talented for sure.
And I think more than anything, we're just dying to know how good this guy's going to be. You know what I mean? Like we saw the few little snaps he got to play last year against Furman, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and what he showed us was great and was as advertised, but that's a very small sample size. Much different story when you're the guy taking the snap in each and every game. You're the one running the offense. Can he live up to it? We certainly hope so. And again, I think we're all just anxious to finally see it happen.
We just want to get it started, right?
Right.
Let's see what we got here. Come on, we got a little taste of this. Let's see what we got. It's like, you go in the kitchen and, whoever's cooking, hey, taste this. It tastes pretty good. Give you like a taste like in the spoon.
All right, it'll be ready in an hour. What?
And you're like, what? We need it now. That's really good.
No, we're not eating this till tomorrow, by the way. Come on.
That's kind of what this is. You got a little taste of last year, and you saw big play after big play in those little small scope of things.
Yep.
And now you're like, man, what this guy could do, like starting and taking all the snaps. I know it's old school, but I think the idea of being able to sit behind Rattler for a year, not being forced on the field, having a chance to learn, and I think there was a lot of value learning from Spencer Rattler.
And I know you weren't here last week when Beamer talked at the media availability, but he brought up the exact point. He was posed the question of, what does it say about his maturity level? Because he could have gone to a lot of places and been guaranteed the starting job right from the jump, as so many freshmen are nowadays, which is a far cry from how college football used to be. And Beamer talked about that as well. But no, he wanted to come here and sit behind a proven guy in Lenore Sellers, a guy that he knew was going to be going on to the NFL after this upcoming season. And he did that, gained all that experience. How is that going to pay off when he gets on the field? We'll have to see, but it certainly can't hurt him.
No one has ever been too ready.
Right.
I always say that about like Major League Baseball when, some guys in the minors, everybody's flipping out. Oh, he's got to come up. He's got to come up. But there's no one has ever failed because they were too ready. No one stayed in the minors too long.
Right.
No one ever said, you brought him up sooner, he'd have been successful. There's never, being cooked in the rotisserie is always good to make sure you're ready to roll and the little thing pops out and then you eat, right? Mm-hmm. I just think that there's nothing wrong with sitting for a year. In this world we live in now that everybody wants it yesterday, and if a freshman doesn't play his first year, well, what's wrong with him? Or whatever. Or let's say Lenore Sellers doesn't set the world on fire against Old Dominion. We're going to hear, right?
Sure. Well, is this all we got?
That's it? well, now he's a starter, you see now. No. The Old Dominion game isn't the end of the world one way or the other. No matter how Lenore Sellers plays in the first game, that's not the end-all, be-all.
Right.
So, but it's just very interesting how we go about this. I just think it's great to get to sit behind Spencer Rattler, and all we heard was the positive guy that Rattler was off the field in his time in South Carolina. So I'm sure Lenore Sellers got a chance to learn and listen and get a little help and a little mentorship, a little Mr. Miyagi action, and we'll see how it translates starting against ODU.
For sure.
So I brought this up in the last segment. I think we'll have a little fun with it. Going through the SEC, looking at head coaches, expectation, kind of like that get-out-of-jail-free card honeymoon phase.
Right.
Sense of urgency, hot seats.
All right.
Alabama,
I'll get
this
a list going here.
Doesn't this one feel like a no-brainer because there's a ton of expectation? I also think Kalen DeBoer gets a year where everybody goes, okay, dude, we get it. You're taking over for Nick. You're coming in. Look, again, 7-5, you might have to hire a food taster. But if they get to the playoff.
There's a line for sure.
If he makes the playoff, I think everybody goes, okay, that's cool. Now, next year, you got to compete for the championship, Kalen.
That is the minimum because missing the playoffs, and especially in a 12-team playoff, that's setting off red alerts right away.
Good.
Like,
it's not good.
Your expectation is you're at least supposed to be in it. Again, maybe you're the 11th seed. Maybe you got to go on the road in your first game. Like, okay, but you got to at least make it in the – because, again, that's still a very talented roster. They didn't lose a whole lot and still were able to bring in a bunch of high-level guys too.
Yeah, I mean, if you go 8-4, not a lot of happiness in Tuscaloosa.
I was going to say, I don't think people are going to be celebrating a Citrus Bowl in your first year.
But
by the way, what are our 3 categories here?
This is expectation.
Okay.
Alabama. There's a huge expectation. I do think DeBoer gets a year where if they're not playing in the college football championship or the semifinal, no one's going to flip out.
Right.
But you're right. You got to make the playoff.
Yeah.
You just got to, because there's huge expectation.
Sure.
Arkansas, look, we've talked about it. Our buddy Sam is in trouble. Big trouble.
I mean, is 6-6 enough? If they got back to a bowl game, is that enough to save his job?
Does it depend on how you get those 6 wins?
I guess so.
All right, for an example, let's just click this really quick. All right, so let's say your 6 wins, you beat Arkansas Pine Bluff, you beat UAB.
By the way, if you don't beat Pine Bluff, you may not last in the second game.
By the way, just fire yourself, right? Just fire yourself. Pine Bluff, UAB, you beat Louisiana Tech. So that's your 3 there that you should win.
Sure.
So now you got to find the other 3 between Missouri, Texas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. There's 4.
Okay.
So you got to find a way to get a win. You got to beat Oklahoma State, or you got to get Auburn, A&M, Tennessee, LSU, Ole Miss, Texas, Missouri. You got to pull 2 of those. Good luck. So if you get 6 and find a way to pull a couple upsets in there, because by the way, the Oklahoma State game's in Stillwater.
If you're 6 wins, the 3 non-conference wins, and then you have like Auburn, A&M, and Mississippi State, if those are your 3 conference wins, it's not the strongest. I mean, Auburn and A&M, that's decent.
That might keep you. Keep you your job for another year.
I feel like you got to knock off one of these big names.
It feels like you got to do something to wow that fan base into believing in you again.
Sure.
Like 2 years ago when Uncle Sam was the darling of the SEC.
Oh, exactly.
So I think again, Sam's just in trouble. God love him. I'd love to see him hold on, but now Hugh Freeze in the honeymoon stage at Auburn.
Look,
they were solid. They're probably going to be better this year.
I think people are sleeping on Auburn. I think Hugh Freeze, as much as we joke about his burner phones and off-the-field names, he's a darn good football coach. Very few people have beaten Nick Saban multiple times. He's one of them.
Let's face it, Hugh Freeze was part of the reason why Nick Saban changed his coaching philosophy.
And he was doing it with a lot less talent than Nick Saban had.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're going to beat Alabama A&M. You should beat Cal. You should beat New Mexico. You should beat Arkansas. You're sitting at 4-0 already. Let's say you lose to Oklahoma and Georgia. And you got Oklahoma, Georgia, Missouri. Let's say you do lose those three. Then let's say you go to Lexington and pull a win.
Yeah.
Now you're 5-3. You'll beat Vandy 6-3. Louisiana Monroe 7-3. Bama at the end of the year should be 7-4. Let's say at home you beat A&M and you go 8-4.
That's perfectly fine. That they were ahead of schedule and you were number one.
Yeah, so I think Hugh Freeze is still in that honeymoon phase.
With a quarterback in Peyton Thorne that couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. How much development does he have in his full offseason with Hugh Freeze and all that kind of stuff? What kind of steps forward can he make? Because he was perfectly okay at Michigan State. He wasn't lights out, but he was fine.
What was it? The year they won double-digit games with Mel Tucker, Peyton Thorne was hitting Keon Coleman all over the field.
Yeah, it does help when you have a high-caliber wide receiver like that, but he was a perfectly acceptable quarterback. Took a step back last year. What does this offseason do for him? It's
been 2 years since he had that nice year at Michigan State. Right. So we'll see. Because remember, Hugh Freeze has taken over now, right? Yeah. Everything was Phil Montgomery's fault, the offensive coordinator.
Quarterback whisperer.
Yes, he is. So Auburn, I think honeymoon phase for Hugh Freeze still. Obviously, Billy Napier's on the hottest of hot seats in the SEC.
Yep.
Georgia, huge expectation with Kirby Smart, especially last year, where if you don't lose the SEC championship game, there's a good chance you do something that hasn't been done since the 1744 Minnesota Golden Gophers, right?
Right.
3 straight. Kentucky, Mark Stoops has cracked the code. He's fine. He just rolls along the way he is.
And I think especially after the A&M thing happened last year, where it seemed like he was all but about to board the plane to go to College Station, I think there's this sense of, we held on to our guy type of thing, whether you want to believe that or not. But I think that maybe bought him, even if this year is a step back, because like South Carolina, they got a lot of new pieces. They got a lot of unproven guys stepping into major roles up there. If they win a 5-7, I think that would still kind of be a mulligan for Mark Stoops.
Oh, Mark Stoops is fine. I mean, he landed at a basketball school, and they win just enough for everybody's interested until Midnight Madness.
And they somehow pay him like a top 10 coach.
It's hilarious. This is the funniest part. He's been at Kentucky since 2013.
Longest tenured SEC coach.
How many years do you think Kentucky football has ended the season in the top 25?
Ended the year in the top 25. I'm going to go 4.
They wish. 2.
2. Wow.
2. Mark Stoops has won more than 7 games in a season. Guess how many times?
3 or 4.
2.
2. God, man.
Yep.
It's worse than I thought.
Yep. 10-3 and 18 and 8-5 and 19. Since then, 5-6, 7-6, 7-6. It's been nothing special.
It's the finesse of the century.
I'm not criticizing him. God love him.
No, he.
Way to go, man.
Again, he understands what the role of the football program is, and he keeps it right where it needs to be.
You know what his career record is at Kentucky?
Probably losing record, right?
63 and 65.
Wow.
But he has been to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 straight bowl games.
You give people a destination in Florida to fly to in early January, in the midst of watching the basketball team play on an aircraft carrier in the start of SEC play, they're good.
Especially a basketball school, man. Stoops at a basketball school has done just enough to go to bowl games to keep his gig.
That's right.
So I give him credit. I do. And he's fine. He's rolling along just fine at Kentucky. And he'll continue to do that as long as he wants to. It's unbelievable. What's that whole thing about falling forward?
Yeah. Pretty much. That's him.
We'll keep going. We're almost halfway through. We're different categories for the head coaches in the SEC going into 2024. We'll keep rolling. We start off next with what's going on at LSU and Brian Kelly. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head till 3 here on the Game, doing football.
Oops.
Halftime show, football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. By the way, our Summer Golf Classic coming up at Charwood, August 23rd. You can sign up by calling 803-755-2000. We'll be raffling off Gamecock football season tickets. Also, we'll be giving away our ultimate Gamecock season ticket. Again, that's at Charwood. Our buddy Rock and the staff there. 803-755-2000. More info. That's August 23rd. It's a Thursday.
I think we should extend an invitation to Scotty Scheffler because he's on a path to win every single conceivable golf tournament on the face of the earth in the year of 2024. So I figured our Summer Golf Classic should probably be on that list.
How about Scheffler?
What a year.
Mean, and what a run in the final round the other day. I mean, to win that gold. There's an interesting conversation that I'd heard last week when they're talking about like golf and tennis at the Olympics. And even basketball, not to the same extent, but kind of the same way. It's like, how much does winning a gold medal really matter to a Scotty Scheffler? I mean, obviously Novak Djokovic was dying to win a gold medal.
Sure.
Because he'd won everything else, right?
Sure.
But how much do you value that as like a golfer or tennis player winning a gold medal compared to, obviously, if you said to Scotty Scheffler, you got the choice of winning a gold medal or a green jacket, you're taking the green jacket, obviously.
Yeah, probably so. And golf, much like tennis, actually, is one of those sports that is internationally competitive anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like basketball, like, okay, well, now we're playing these other countries that we don't normally see. Like, it's kind of on par with, on par with what you're doing on a tournament in, tournament out type of basis. So, but you could see kind of the emotion from Scheffler the other day and how much it did mean to him. That again, it's adding to what we already know is the best golfer in the world right now.
Yeah, it's like, and even with a gold medal in basketball, if you go to the other countries in the world and you ask them about how important the Olympic gold medal is in basketball, they all will value it much more than the U.S.
Sure.
Because in the U.S., it's like, yeah, it's great, but go win the NBA championship.
Right.
The NBA championship carries so much more weight than winning a gold medal.
Yeah, that's what when you go into the NBA Hall of Fame, that's what they list first before your gold medals.
Nobody's going, that dude won 2 gold medals. Nobody cares.
Exactly.
We just care in America when we don't win the gold.
Right.
Then we're like, all right, we got to fix this mess.
Right.
This is unacceptable. So it's just interesting when you think about it, like swimming and diving and gymnastics and, track and field. The Olympics are their pinnacle.
Right.
But for a lot of this other stuff, like a golf, a tennis, the basketball, if baseball came back, hockey at the Olympics, winning your league championships matters a lot more for the most part, especially here in America. We're all about the pro sports and winning. Well, even the world, even soccer, you're sitting with the under 23 guys for the most part in the Olympics.
Right.
If someone said, what do you rather do, win an Olympic gold medal or win the World Cup? That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That would take like 3 seconds. So
Sure.
anyway.
Sure.
So the Olympics are rolling. We've been talking about that a bit. We're going through the SEC right now, coaches. High expectation, hot seat, honeymoon period, sense of urgency. In honor of Shane Beamer talking about his sense of urgency on Jim Rome.
Right.
All right, we're now at LSU. There's expectation from Brian Kelly. 2 double-digit win seasons. No one wants to hear you're replacing the quarterback and the wide receivers and blah, blah, blah. In Baton Rouge, you're like, okay, dude, go to college football playoff.
Well,
so there's a sense of expectation.
The last 3 head coaches before you all won national championships. Now, they won them in varying degrees of ways to get there. But again, your expectation there is to compete for and win national championships and to do it relatively quickly, too, because it didn't take those other guys all that long to get to that point. So, yes, entering year number 3, they're starting to look at their watch like, all right, buddy, let's get this thing going.
Yeah, your double-digit wins is cute, but, and that's the thing, Brian Kelly's getting scratched a big check to go win national championships.
Right.
And Brian Kelly came to LSU because he knew he had gone about as far as he could at Notre Dame regarding the opportunity to win a national championship.
Right.
So LSU, again, nobody wants to hear about your new. You got to put in a new quarterback and new wide receivers and blah blah. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
What they care about is you got to go win. You got to go compete for a national championship this year.
Well, LSU is a place where you're supposed to just reload talent because you're supposed to send guys in the NFL, but you're also supposed to have 4- and 5-star guys waiting in the wings to continue on with the momentum.
And, let's be honest. They look at Brian Kelly, oh, you're a better coach than two of the three guys that won national championships.
Which, I mean, on
it's
paper,
true.
he is.
He is. Yeah. So Brian's got some expectation this year to, I wouldn't say a sense of urgency yet. If they don't, obviously they should be in the college football playoff in the mind of folks in Baton Rouge, right?
Sure.
If for some reason you don't make the college football playoff this year, then the sense of urgency kicks in.
Yeah, then it starts to heat up a little bit because in a 12-team playoff field, again, you don't have to win the SEC. You don't even have to go to Atlanta. But you should, at worst, be like 9-3, right?
Well, let's be honest here. If these are the schools, if you don't make the college football playoff, there's an issue. Then the sense of urgency will kick in.
Which, let's flip this a little bit. We're obviously looking forward to that Week 3 game here against South Carolina. And, we hope that South Carolina has a good shot in that one. If they lose South Carolina, think that heat's going to turn up a little bit on Brian Kelly?
Absolutely.
Which that's not an indictment to what South Carolina is, but when you think about the people in Baton Rouge and the way that they probably view this program, that's unacceptable.
Yeah. Mississippi State, that's a honeymoon period. Jeff Lebby, first year. Missouri, there's an expectation to stack another big season, right? For Eli Drinkwitz. Right now, they love him. He's funny. We stand on business. But come back to 6-6, Eli, there's going to be a problem.
Yeah, that's one of those things like, okay, you showed it in 1 year. Like we talked about with Texas, can you keep that sustained or is it going to be a flash in the pan? And again, if they reverted back to being 6-6, especially with the talent they have coming back and probably the best wide receiver in the entire country, Luther Burden, I'm not saying he'd be on a hot seat, but people be like, well, why do we only have that 1 year of success and everything else is mediocre?
You know how the feeling is around here for Shane after 5-7?
Sure.
That's a feeling you would get for Drinkwitz if they fall back to a 6-6. I'd be like, whoa.
Yeah, what's happening here?
What do we do here? Because you did it once. Now you've raised the bar. That's why, like, if there's stuff you don't like to do around the house for the girlfriend, the wife, the husband, the boyfriend, whatever, and you have to go do it poorly. Because that way, either A, you'll never be asked to do it again.
Set the standard low.
Or there's no expectation that you'll ever do it for crap. If you do it really well, guess what?
That's going to be the standard.
There's a standard. I made hash browns over the weekend. I did it correctly. Now the pressure's on to never make bad hash browns again.
Oh, man, that's tough.
I screwed up. I made them, and can I be honest with you? I don't know how the hell I did it. That's the worst part.
You didn't burn them?
That's what I did. I made them they were crispy, but still.
Oh, man.
You know that there's a combination of crispy on the top and the bottom is.
For sure.
That's what I hit the sweet spot. I have no clue how I did it.
And now every batch of hash browns you make is going to be held to that standard.
They will never be that good again. I even said that. All right. Oklahoma, obviously, there's an expectation level. Brent Venables last year gets to 10 wins. Now you got a new quarterback, a new offensive line, and you're in the SEC. If Venables has an 8-win season, it's not going to be hot seat, but then there will be a sense of urgency in year 4.
Especially if Texas comes in and is still as good as they were a year ago, because that's what you're going to be compared to at every turn is what is Texas doing? There's
an expectation level at Oklahoma. They aren't crazies to the level of other fan bases, but if Venables has an 8-4, he better get a double-digit win season in 2025, or there could be issues. Especially, you're right, especially if Texas is cooking. Then you have Ole Miss. There is ginormous expectation at Ole Miss.
Oh, if they don't make the playoff this year.
Then there's I'm not going to say no, I'm not going to say a sense of urgency, but there's going to be a lot of what the bleep lane.
Like this is the equivalent of a baseball team or an NFL team making all the moves at the trade deadline. All right, we are all in to win this year. Ole Miss has done everything they can to win this year, and they better do it.
Yep. And if they don't, then it won't be hot seats or anything like this because Lane's been so successful in Oxford.
I think the belief in Lane will take a hit.
There'll be something up there. All right, we got a few more. We got Tennessee, A&M, Texas, Vandy on our little list, and we'll get back to that. Halftime show. We're doing football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game. You know, I always do, when we talk about the Nest, I always go to the Nest showroom on the old internet. It's nestshowroom.com, and you can see all the great things they have to offer where it comes to tubs and showers and fixtures and lighting and appliances. It's phenomenal. And the showroom itself it's just unreal when you're walking through it. And if you are looking for any of those things to update and upgrade your home, before you make a final decision, please just call the Nest, 803-978-2025. Over 70 years of experience there at the Nest. Just let them know what you want to do, your vision, your budget. Make that phone call, set the appointment, go in, walk around the showroom, let them lay out their ideas for what you want. They will make it happen for you. 803-978-2025. It's the Nest, Gadsden in the Vista. Make that phone call, set up your appointment, have your vision come true for you within your budget at the Nest. What we're talking about, football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. The coaches poll is out. We'll get to that, the top 25 college football coaches poll. Shocking who's number one. Shocking. We'll get to that here in a minute. First of all, we'll wrap up our little spin through the SEC. We're talking about the coaches. There's 4 different buckets here. There's expectations, there is honeymoon period, there's sense of urgency, and there's hot seat. We're at Tennessee right now. Volunteers, I would say there's expectation there. I mean, look, Joe Milton, one guy doesn't crater your football team.
No.
But The thing that probably held Tennessee back last year was the play of Joe Milton. They ran the ball really well.
Sure.
Their defense was better than the year before. Problem is they couldn't throw the football.
Yeah, they didn't have, because Hendon Hooker was a great quarterback for what Heupel's system is, and losing him, putting in Joe Milton, who again, the athleticism, the arm strength, all the things that make people go wow, which is wowing people in Patriots camp right now. It jumps off the page at you till you actually start playing football, and he's throwing it 10 yards over guys' heads.
Right, exactly. And the footwork's a mess and all this other stuff, but he's got that big arm.
Yeah.
So Joe Milton out there, Nico, everyone loves Nico. Nico is going to solve the problem.
He's a, $5 million redshirt freshman quarterback. Played in the bowl game, looked good against Iowa, who was down a lot of guys on defense at that point in time. But the hype train is rolling through Knoxville at a very high clip right now, and we'll see if he lives up to it.
And I'll say this, it's going to be very interesting if they don't reach the expectation level that they have in Knoxville. I mean, Heupel's not getting canned, but still.
They're a program that benefits a lot from the expanded playoff, because are they as good as Georgia? Are they as good as Texas? Are they as good as in Alabama? Probably not. But again, you go 9-3, you probably got a good shot at still making it in. And for them, a team that has never been in the college football playoff, hasn't been to a national championship game in almost 30 years, they'll take it.
Well, it's interesting. The expanded playoff is great unless you don't make it.
That would be a little more glaring, yes.
I mean, because when we talk about it, and the first thing we say is, wow, it's great for Penn State. It's great for Tennessee. It's great for Ole Miss. It's great for this team, that team, this team, right?
Yeah.
And it is great.
Sure.
Unless you don't make it.
Then we have a different conversation.
Then it spins to, you couldn't make the expanded playoff field? Really? It's 12 teams. You couldn't get in? So we'll see. But Tennessee, there's a ton of expectation. I think Texas A&M, obviously, Mike Elko, first year's in a honeymoon phase.
Sure.
Texas, there's a lot of expectation on Sark. Again, congrats. You got the college football playoff. You shed for 1 year your tag of underachieving joke of a program, right?
Yeah.
To Sark's credit and the players in the program, they were what Texas football should be. We'll see if you can stack it.
You got to make the playoff at Texas.
Yeah, you got to make the playoff.
You can't.
Flat out, especially now, right?
Especially now, coming in with the talent that you have returning, guys that you brought in from the transfer portal, anything less than making the playoff is unacceptable. You don't have to necessarily go to Atlanta. You don't have to be in the SEC championship game, but you got to be somewhere in that 12-team field.
Yeah. And Vanderbilt, I know we laugh because Vanderbilt is always entertaining to us, but at some point, our boy look, 2 years ago, Vanderbilt beat Kentucky and beat Florida.
Yep.
I think both games were at Vandy. Everybody started going, ooh, maybe this Lee fella's got something. And last year they went back to being the punching bag that they typically are.
Win more games than you won a season ago.
Yeah, I think if Lee just gets them, win more than last year, be more competitive. And I think, look, they want Clark Lee to succeed. They have a very long leash there because you know what they don't care too much about? Sports.
Right.
So if he can just make them more competitive than they were last year, like you said, win more games than you did in 2024 or 2023, you know what? You'll be okay for now.
Yeah, at least give some semblance that you're steering it in the right direction.
Right. All right. So, and by the way, we said this before. If they cared, you know how much money Vanderbilt alum have? We talk about Mark Cuban's kid goes to Vandy.
Well, it took them finally ponying up a little bit in the offseason to stop the bleeding.
Remember
because they were losing their entire roster.
Well, that's what happened. One reason why they were so bad last year is a lot of the players that were decent on the 2022 team pieced out.
Yeah, you have a semi-decent season at Vanderbilt. Say, oh, this guy could play at the SEC level, and then you end up getting sucked up by somewhere else, like Ray Davis when he went to Kentucky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, you have become the stepping stone.
Yeah.
Where people just go there to prove themselves and then go somewhere else.
If Vanderbilt ever said, you know what we want to do now? We want to care about athletics. Let's start writing some checks. They could have a heck of an NIL. With all the money that they have floating around Nashville. All right, Coach's Top 25 poll is out. I know you'll be stunned by this. Georgia's number 1. Ohio State's 2. Oregon's 3. Texas 4. Bama 5. No shock there at any of that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think I'm not as on board for Texas as others, but I get it. They went to the college football playoff last year. They have a ton of talent. I understand. It's just like Oregon.
And
I get it.
Let's also understand who's voting in this poll.
All the coaches.
The quote unquote coaches, right?
Do you think they're really voting?
No, I think it's the assistant down the hall that's putting together film of somebody's secondary.
Coach walks into the GA's office. Hey, one of you GAs, do me a favor, fill this out for me.
Right.
So you can only take so much of it.
It's a grain of salt.
Right. Ole Miss at 6, Notre Dame 7, Michigan 8, Penn State 9, Florida State 10. Again, you're not going to go, oh my God, I can't believe this. Clemson's at 14. The next 5 were Missouri 11, LSU 12, Utah 13, Tigers 14, Tennessee 15. Oklahoma at 16 because, they're Oklahoma, and the GA said, well, Oklahoma, they're usually really good. Number 17 is Kansas State. 18 is Oklahoma State. 19 is Miami of Florida because, again, Mario Cristobal, at some point, Mario Cristobal is going to do great things at Miami. A&M's 20, Arizona's 21, NC State 22, Southern Cal sits at 23 because, again, the GA goes, oh, yeah, they're really good. Pete Carroll's a really good coach.
Brands mean a lot in the coaches poll.
24 is Kansas, and, of course, because it is a coaches poll, Kurt Ferentz is grandfathered in at Iowa.
Is there any reason Kansas should be behind Southern Cal or Clemson for that matter? I don't think so.
Kansas is good, man.
I got Kansas in my playoff.
Kansas is good.
Compared to what the past 15 years have been, that sounds like a sentence out of the Twilight Zone.
Yes. Absolutely it is. Or we would go like this. Here, take this cup and go fill it up. We have to test you.
I was going to say, you'd be sending me to a mental institution.
You're doing a breathalyzer. Kansas?
No, Eric Mangini hasn't been there in a long time.
All right, real quick. We've got some Shane sound from from being on with Jim Rome. And let's go back to the discussion of Rocket Sanders. And look, if Rocket Sanders is healthy and this offensive line can be solid, Rocket Sanders could have a year like he did a couple seasons ago. Here's Shane Beamer talking about Rocket Sanders.
Yeah, he's doing great. When he came in from Arkansas, Jim, we had to do surgery and rehab an injury that he brought from Arkansas on his shoulder, and so he didn't really do much at all during spring practice. But he's been on a mission since he got here, and has had very much a pro all business mentality to get healthy and get back to the Rocket Sanders of 2022. There was a reason that if you look back at the preseason all SEC teams going into last year, so a year ago at this time, he was first team preseason all SEC as a running back, and rightfully so. And it was really awesome to be able to watch him out there today, handing the ball to him. Today was actually his first real practice here at South Carolina because he didn't do much in the spring rehabbing his injury. So he looks great. He's worked really, really hard to get himself in position and be the best version of Rocket Sanders that the country has seen.
I'm sure Jim Rome watched a lot of Rocket Sanders at Arkansas 2 years ago.
Sure, he's very familiar.
Absolutely. Probably wore his Hog Suey hat. Watching that team with KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders and that crew. But look, again, Sanders, the shoulder stuff for a running back, you get hit there last time I checked a lot.
Quite a bit.
So we'll see how everything goes. Coming back from the injury, do they put him on a carry pitch count sort of thing?
I think definitely for the first game.
I think you slow play him in.
Old Dominion
against Old Dominion.
I don't know, 8, 9 carries.
No more than 10.
Just let him get his feet wet a little bit, and then all right, we're going to save you for next week.
Yep, I think he might not even start.
Probably not.
Who knows?
I wouldn't be surprised.
So, but a healthy, productive Rocket Sanders will do nothing but elevate the offense. All right, we'll get back in here. Firehouse sub text the hour 803-404-6100. It's football in the 1 o'clock hour. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. All right, time to check our Firehouse sub. Text the hour at 803-404-6100. What do you got there, man?
Yeah, weighing in here on the coaches poll. Amos Texter says that most schools, either SID or director of ops, fills out top 25 and copies the head coach before sending.
Oh,
That's probably true.
Would not be surprised. I walk by the secretary. Hey, Millie, you want to do me a solid? I got to go play some golf.
It's especially funny during the season because again, you only get 20 hours practice with the team. You got to watch all the film, all this kind of stuff. Do you think coaches actually take their time to think about, who do I think is the number 17 team in the country this week?
Yeah, I mean, look, not to be mean, but we hear you heard when we were at SEC Media Days, because the Texas crew asked every coach about Texas.
Sure.
And they asked Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly's going, well, yeah, I saw Texas once. We were watching some film. We're playing Bama. We watched a Texas film. So you're going to tell me a coach in the SEC is going to go Arizona? Yeah.
Know a whole lot about Utah this year.
Yeah, I'm on board with those Wildcats.
Which again, that goes back to brands, right? There's no reason Southern Cal should be in anybody's or remotely close to anybody's top 25. But it's just like that recognition. Southern Cal's usually pretty good.
They'll always put Iowa in because they all know Kurt Ferentz. He's been a head coach for 100 years.
Sure.
I like Kurt. We always hang out. We always get beers at the coaches' conferences. I'm going to put Iowa in there.
I was going to say, you don't think that they are thinking through the mindset of, that team's our rival. I'm not going to put them in my top 25. That school's coached by my buddy. I think I'm going to put them in.
Yeah, I always love when fans vote for all-star games. Well, fans aren't objective. No one's objective.
No, of course not.
Coaches aren't objective. Front office people aren't objective. Owners aren't objective. Other players aren't objective. How many players vote for their buddies?
All of them.
And no one's objective. That's why I never get mad over fan votes. No one's objective.
Yeah, well, what did you think was going to happen?
I know. All right, so we appreciate the text from the Firehouse sub. Text line 803-404-6100. All right, real quick, and we might circle back just in 2 o'clock hour. Sherrone Moore at Michigan is one of 7 members of the coaching staff or members of the program at Michigan from 2023 accused of violating NCAA rules. Now, according to the story, Sherrone Moore allegedly deleted a thread of 52 text messages between himself and former Michigan staffer Connor Stalions in October 2023. On the same day, media reports revealed the Stalions was leading an effort to capture play calling signals of future opponents. Now, do I think that... Well, we've talked about this. They knew what was up. Harbaugh knew. They all knew what was up.
Totally.
It was this thing was well planned out and plotted out by a former military guy who was some kooky weirdo Michigan fan with a manifesto.
I hope we get the manifesto
so good
leaked at some point. I want to read it.
I know he's such a wacko. But so here's what the NCAA is doing. We can't get Harbaugh anymore.
No.
We'll get somebody. We're going to get somebody on this. So they'll get, is Sherrone Moore guilty in my mind? Sure he is.
Part of it.
But here's my question. I guess the fair question is this. Harbaugh was suspended for 6 games last year, right?
Yes.
Roughly.
Yes.
So he's in the NFL. You can slap a show cause on him if he ever wants to come back. You can't touch him. So last year, you do what you did to Harbaugh. Was that punishment enough, taking the head coach out of 6 games last year?
Didn't affect anything.
They still won a national championship.
Yeah.
So now you're going to get Moore and some of these other guys in the program. Look, I get it. They're guilty. And if you want to get them, I'm not going to lose sleep over it, or I'm not going to jump up and down saying it's wrong. Because, again, you did what you did. You opened the door to get caught and get punished, right?
Sure.
Always. But it kind of has a feeling to it that was Moore just doing what the head coach wanted him to do?
Probably.
Because doesn't this feel like this is Jim Harbaugh's thing, right?
Well, Jim Harbaugh didn't know anything about it.
Saying that with a straight face just makes you laugh, doesn't it?
It does.
I get it. Again, Moore did it. If they got the goods on him, you get in trouble.
Sure.
But you're just following the lead of the head coach. I mean, is Sherrone Moore going to stand up and do this? No, Harbs, that's wrong. I'm not doing it.
Here's my question. How's the NCAA going to screw this up?
Oh, they will.
Because they've got the evidence here, right? Like they've got plenty of things against Michigan.
Sure.
But they're somehow going to mismanage this.
Sure they are. They screw up all these things.
It's what they do.
I mean, the FBI gave them all sorts of stuff.
Sure.
How'd that work?
Not great.
You got one guy, the dope at LSU, and you got Sean Miller, kind of, sort of, but he's back, and so is the dope at LSU.
Well, and look, the reason this leaked, they're trying to get ahead of that documentary. Untold comes out at the end of the month. The Connor Stallion story. Who knows what we're going to learn? They're trying to get their allegations out, hand out the punishments, take down whatever banners they need to take down, try and get that all done before that comes out, because who knows what we're going to learn from that.
It's a very good point. And it feels like now the guy that's going to take the kick in the lower extremities is Sherrone Moore.
Yeah.
And not Jim Harbaugh.
Well, if he needs a new job, he can always go sell vacuum cleaners.
You know what these head coaches do, though, the really good ones? They leave town before the trouble gets there.
That's exactly what Jim Harbaugh did.
Yeah, he did. And got a national championship. And nobody in Ann Arbor cares, by the way.
Nope.
Nobody. All right, we'll come back in here. That's football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. What's trending at 2 coming up next here on the Halftime Show in the Game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on The Game. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. One of the things trending at 2, obviously Gamecock football. Summer camp is underway. We've heard a lot from Shane Beamer. He was on the Jim Rome show recently. Also, wide receiver coach Mike Furrey. I want to get back to that real quick, Tyler. Furrey was talking about Luke Doty. Now, Luke Doty, obviously, it's been a weird, strange journey. But Luke Doty now spending most of his time in the wide receiver room. How is Luke Doty's role going to shake out with this crowded group of wide receivers? Here's wide receiver coach Mike Furrey on Doty.
Yeah, again, I think the next 3 weeks will establish a lot of that in regards to the role that he has. And but when you look at, and anybody says the name Luke Doty, I mean, you're talking about the pride of South Carolina, the University of South Carolina. The guy's amazing. Everybody loves him around here. His work ethic is unbelievable. He's so unselfish, and he just wants to be a part of this team. He wants to help this team become really, really successful, and he's an amazing kid. So it'll be fun again to watch him kind of become that athlete over the next couple weeks.
It's always interesting to hear what coaches don't say.
Sure.
And what you heard about Luke Doty is what a lot of people say. He's a South Carolina kid. He's a leader. He's a hard worker. He loves the Gamecocks, all those things. What didn't you hear?
Didn't hear a lot of on-the-field stuff.
No. What's he been doing in practice? How is it looking so far as a wide receiver? Is he popping? Typically, if a guy's popping, we hear, wow, that dude's been popping.
It's one of those things, if he ends up being a solid contributor to wide receiver room, it's plus. Nobody's, I think, going into the season expecting him to be one of the guys. We saw he had a handful of catches last year and did fine with that, but I don't think anybody puts him on the pedestal of saying, well, he's going to be one of the top 4, one of the starters. Like, he's going to rotate in. He'll get his opportunity here and there, but I don't think people are expecting him to set the world on fire necessarily.
No, I think you probably described it perfect. What you get from him is a positive.
Sure.
You're not expecting him to become a starter or maybe even in your, constant top 6-ish rotation. But whatever he can do for you is a plus at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I said this last year. I thought he was more natural catching a football than he was throwing one. I just don't think he was ever. I mean, again, I know he had injuries and there's obviously development stuff with different coaches and this and that. But Doty, just the little bit you see of him playing the position of quarterback, he just never looked comfortable. He didn't look instinctive. It didn't look natural. He was much more natural when you threw the ball to him, he caught it. But not to say he's a great wide receiver. It's just I think he's an athlete is what Luke Doty is. Now, where do you take that and make his role where he can give you the most of anything? I don't know, but it feels like he's a guy who's an athlete. It never really found his spot. Does that make sense?
It does. And again, we'll see what being only a wide receiver does for him.
We'll see.
Because last year he was spending time between both rooms. As the season went on, I mean, Sellers kind of moved into that backup role, it seemed like, to where maybe he wasn't as involved with the quarterback stuff, but still, he was still listed as a quarterback that did a lot of wide receiver things. Now he's going to the season primarily as a wide receiver that if in case of emergency, break glass, could play quarterback, but you certainly hope it doesn't come to that.
It would be great if Luke Doty shocked us all and became a heck of a wide receiver in his final season, right? It would be great. It'd be fun, but you can't sit and count on that. But you hope it does work because he's a really good guy. He's been here multiple times on our shows. He's a great guy, and you hope it works out for him because, again, you root for guys like that. So I hope it does. I hope he surprises us all pleasantly and becomes a heck of a wide receiver this year, and we go, wow.
That'd be great, but if
how
he
awesome
doesn't,
is that?
Luke Doty performing on the field is not the make or break of this team.
No, not at all.
If he does not give you anything more than a handful of catches this season, then that doesn't mean the wide receiver room is a failure.
No, I mean, you're counting on a lot of the guys you brought in through the portal. You're counting on Nick Harbor. You want to see if any of these other younger receivers can pop for you as well. That's really what you're counting on. And we'll see where the Luke Doty thing goes. But he's a guy that, again, there's a lot of intangibles off the field that Luke Doty brings to this football team in the positive. All right, also a little get-together on Saturday. I was out of town, but I heard there was like a soccer game broke out.
Gravenberch, that's Elliott, that's nice. Here's Bradley. Now Salah onto Bradley. Lovely play from Liverpool. Onana saves it, but it's in this time, and it's Kostas Tsimikas who taps home to round off another very classy Liverpool move.
Liverpool and Man U, what, sell out at Williams-Brice.
Loaded house.
Got a little sandstorm going. Just a fun event. When you have this kind of stuff in your town, it's just cool.
It was. I know people didn't enjoy leaving the event quite as much, as seemed to be a bit of a traffic nightmare. But when you have that many people from out of town that don't understand the flows and where to go and stuff, you're probably going to run into some things like that.
It was very interesting, the percentage of folks from out of town who came in.
Yeah.
And I heard different numbers, 60-40, 50-50, 65-35, 55-45. It was, because again, this is an event.
Yes.
And when, look, soccer is growing in America, obviously. But it's still a sport that has a very loyal niche following. Mm-hmm. And if Man U and Liverpool are playing anywhere in this country,
two of the biggest names in soccer in the world,
there's going to be a percentage of people in America that are going to find that place and go.
And there's a percentage of people from Europe that will also, hey, I've never seen South Carolina before. Let's take the opportunity.
Let's go watch a game
now,
on the pitch.
How impressed they are with the state of South Carolina leaving, I don't know. But they got to experience it.
Yeah, and so it's just a cool event that happened. And you see, like, a lot of social media posts we put up on our Twitter X feed got a ton of views. Because, again, it's a very loyal, passionate following. It might not be a large, gigantic following, but the people that love that sport got a chance to watch two high-level brands play on the old, and they made a pitch right down the road. And again, it's one of those things you go to and you go, like 10 years from now, remember that time we went to that soccer game with who were they again?
Right.
But it's just something you always remember because you went to an event. And
in terms of international soccer, I mean, it's got a very similar vibe to a college football environment.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Rowdy fans, passionate fans, that literally bleed for their team. And not to say you don't have that in the NFL or the MLB or NBA, but it's just not quite the same.
It's different.
It's different.
There's a vibe to college football that's different from the NFL. It just is. But it is kind of the same vibe you have for soccer across the pond. And how that, I mean, you've got you have a city like Manchester has multiple soccer teams.
Right.
I mean, there are all these little towns in different places have different teams in different leagues, and they hate each other.
I was going to say, depending on, you either grow up a United fan or a Man City fan, and whichever one you choose, you understand that half the people there are going to hate you.
Right.
That's just part of it.
And the old days, they punch you in the face.
Exactly. They still might do that.
They've kind of cut the hooliganism down some, but yeah, it's craziness.
Apparently, the officials that were in charge of deciding the host city for this event, I think they brought them to the Kentucky game last year. Darude was there. It was like a rave. It was a night game. Like, good call, by the way, because you knew the vibes were going to be immaculate that night. They were, and I don't know if that was what won you over with them, but I'm certainly sure it went a long way.
Well, the vibe is that it went really well. I mean, the leaving, if that's the worst thing you got, you did okay.
Sure.
So it's a cool event to have here in town. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Tristan's Fine Jewelry here on the game. All right, Olympics real quick. U.S. obviously is dominating in total medals. They finally got ahead in gold. There's been some disappointments. There's been some surprises like any Olympic Games. But there's a very interesting call in the 100 meters. Here is Noah Lyles winning the gold medal in the 100 for the U.S.
There's an Olympic gold medal waiting for somebody who wants it the most. Now Thompson starts to wind up. Curley's going with him. This is close. Jamaica's going to do it. Keshane Thompson is a gold medalist on debut.
Oops.
We started with was going to take 9.7 to win. Guess what he just ran? 9.78. Come on, man! But it was a lean at the tape by Thompson. Visually, we think he got it. They're working on the photo. Fred Curley pushed him all the way. Noah Lyles is looking anxiously.
Oops. Lee Diffie was the NBC announcer. He's doing track right now, by the way. He still has a job. Lee got it wrong, and it was Noah Lyles in a photo finish. I mean, I don't know how long they had to look at that photo.
Yeah.
That thing was close, man. And Diffie admitted today that he got it wrong and he botched the call, and you just heard the botch call saying that Kashane Thompson of Jamaica was the winner, but instead, obviously, Noah Lyles won the gold. And look, dude's doing it real time, split second. My thought, though, and one of the things that you always hear when play-by-play guys are taught, if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah, just leave the doubt out there. Photo finish, we're not sure. Could have been Lyles, could have been the guy from Jamaica. I do, and look, I love Lee Diffie as a commentator, by the way. And I think and again, when you're watching it happen in real time, you may think that you see something, but especially when it's that close, you do kind of have to leave it open until you get official confirmation.
You have to let the story tell itself.
That's right.
And Lee kind of jumped the gun, and he's been getting crushed for it. But, again, Lee Diffie, like you said, he does IndyCar and stuff like that. He's a high-level guy.
He's good.
He just jumped the gun.
Yeah.
And he's hearing about it, believe me. Also in the Olympics, Simone Biles didn't get a gold. Oh, my God.
You know how good you know how good you have to be when the news of you not getting gold is a big deal?
Yes. That's how good you are. And Biles got the silver. Looked like the bronze originally, but then there was some score stuff going on, and Biles ends up with the silver. And the U.S. goes silver, bronze, as Jordan Childs gets the bronze. In the floor exercise, everybody thought Biles would be a no-brainer to win the floor.
Sure.
And she got the silver after everything was kicked up. What Simone Biles has done is just phenomenal. 27 years old, which is old for a gymnast. That's like you're a grandpa or grandma in gymnast years.
That's such a funny thing with the Olympics now, with how young a lot of these athletes get their first opportunity at 16 or 17. Like, people think like Katie Ledecky's 40. She's like 28, but she's been around for so long.
She was like 15 when she won her first gold.
Exactly. You just think that she's, oh man, she must be in her mid 40s or something like that. Like, no, she's not even 30 yet. Because she's just been in like 4 different Olympics. Yeah,
it's so interesting. And, and Biles, to her credit, look, what happened to her in Tokyo 3 years ago, and she got criticism. Look, feel however you want. I never understood it, because when you're in midair that high and you're disoriented, have no idea where you're going to land or how you're going to land.
Especially for a sport like that is, you have to be as close to perfect as possible, and being off by inches is the difference between being an Olympian and not. Like, I get how something like the twists or twisties, whatever they call it,
the twisties
would throw you off. Like,
or this, how about you land on your head because you have no idea what you're doing in the air?
That's also a problem.
So again, people criticized her, and I had buddies who were like, what's wrong with her? I'm like, tell you what, why don't we put you on a mini tramp? We'll shoot you 9 feet in the air.
As they sit on their couches with their can of beer and peanuts.
I just, and Kirk coming from all that criticism to do what she did this year is phenomenal. And by the way, before the Tokyo Olympics, she was pretty good. So big ups to Simone Biles. Obviously, Katie Ledecky, what she's done. But Biles gets a silver today on the floor exercise. And Jordan Childs, her teammate, gets a bronze. Nice showing for the U.S. gymnastics, the women in Paris. All right, we'll come back, continue. What's trending at 2? Sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry here on The Game. What's trending at 2 here on the Game on the Halftime Show, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. Also, what's trending at 2, Shane Beamer talking to Jim Rome the other day on Jim's show, talking about a variety of different things. On the defensive side of the ball, Shane discussed Debo Williams and how Debo has become the tone setter for the defensive side of the ball.
Huge. He's been that way since he got here. He transferred from Delaware. He was one of the first players that I ever talked to when I got hired as the head coach here back in December of 2020. Transferred in, got here in January of 21, and he has been nothing but on a mission since he got here. He's all business all the time. He has the respect of his teammates. He was voted a permanent captain of our football team last year. So he's a leader, has the respect of his team, and love everything that he's about. I think he had more tackles last year here at South Carolina than any linebacker has had here in over 10 years, I believe. So he's just a guy that's a really talented linebacker, leader for us. He comes back along with a lot of other veterans on that defense, and excited to see how those guys continue to progress.
Yeah, I mean, what you want to see this year are even more impactful tackles, more tackles for loss, more havoc plays, all those things that everyone on that defense talked about. You want to, what you did in November, you want to carry it over to start September of this year. So, but Debo Williams, we talked to him SEC Media Days, Tyler, and he's just, dude was ready to go play. He had his cool Debo chain on, and he was ready to go hit somebody.
Yeah, and again, leading the team in tackles, that can be a stat that's a little deceiving depending on where you are making those tackles at. But there's no doubt that Debo Williams has a good opportunity to maybe be an all-SEC type of guy by the time the season's over. And if he is playing at a high level, hopefully the rest of the defense will follow suit.
And there's a lot of depth on that defense, a lot of veterans. You feel like, again, it's in a much better place, especially at the edge. With Kyle Kennard coming in from Georgia Tech, Dylan Stewart, 5-star recruit coming out of high school. You brought back Gilbert Edmond. You're hoping Brian Thomas will develop. Des Yu is still hanging around. No one talks about him anymore. But it feels like the edge, which to me was the biggest weakness of this defense last year. If you get the production off the edge that you hope you're getting with multiple guys, that just makes his defense so much better.
It's very much in a no excuse mode right now because you have the depth, you have the talent, you got enough bodies in that room. Somebody should be able to emerge as a definitive pass rusher because, again, outside of Strong getting a couple sacks, you didn't really have that last year.
Well, think about it for a minute. Kennard was very productive off the edge of Georgia Tech last year. A veteran, a guy that played power conference football. Dylan Stewart, you watched him in the spring. You can't make too much of a spring game, but you saw that ability in the spring game. You see the potential. Gilbert Edmond comes back, didn't get a whole lot of run at Florida State last year, but you saw some interesting potential in Edmond 2 years ago. Des Yu looks like a pass rusher. It looks like gets off the bus, looks like a pass. Can you turn him into a pass rusher? So there's potential there. Brian Thomas, he flashes, and you go, why can't that be more consistent? So you got some pieces here to where you should, like you said, someone or someones should be able to give them some pressure off the edge to make quarterbacks uncomfortable.
And what was one of the biggest problems with your defense? Couldn't get to the quarterback last year.
Couldn't get the quarterback, and you had DBs had to cover way too much, and that didn't help, especially.
What happens when you let the quarterback sit back in the pocket and have all day to throw? Explosive plays.
Yep, and especially when you're having trouble to begin with covering the slot receiver. Now the slot receiver can run around all day long to get open because there's no heat on the quarterback.
It all starts up front.
Hopefully that'll change this year. All right. Also, what's trending at 2, the Olympic basketball squads, men and women, everyone figures both will just, be standing on the medal stand here in the national anthem. But here's Brian Windhorst. The U.S. will play Brazil tomorrow in the quarters. Brazil, though, look, no one thinks they're going to beat the U.S., but they do have a puncher's chance, and here's why. Here's Brian Windhorst from ESPN.
Between their pre-Olympic tour and their pool play games here in France, Team USA has played and beaten 5 of the 7 other teams that joined them in the Olympic quarterfinals. But one of them is not Brazil, who's their opponent on Tuesday night. The Brazilians play a very physical brand of basketball, particularly excelling in offensive rebounding. This has been an area that has been concerning for Team USA so far. They've allowed 16 more offensive rebounds than they've grabbed themselves. Also, Brazil has been red hot shooting the three, hitting 45% of their shots so far. Making three-pointers and getting extra possessions with offensive rebounding is the recipe for an upset, which is why Steve Kerr has been warning his team about Brazil's success heading into Tuesday's game. As for the Americans, Drew Holiday is expected to return from a sprained ankle that kept him out against Puerto Rico, but Steve Kerr intends to use his full roster. That includes using Kevin Durant off the bench, which has been very successful to this point in the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, if you're making it 45% of your threes and you're pulling down a ton of offensive rebounds, does that give you a puncher's chance? Sure it does. Do I think Brazil upsets the U.S.? No.
Probably not.
Now, would I be surprised if Brazil hung out? No, of course not. I mean, the world's just better now.
I think it'll be important to get off to a faster start. We've seen the U.S. get off to some slow starts, including against Puerto Rico the other day. So maybe Brazil is a team that can make you pay a little bit more if you don't kind of keep pace with them in the early going. But again, as we've seen with the talent that America has, on its team. I mean, Anthony Edwards went crazy off the bench the other day. Like, there's no reason they shouldn't have a gold medal here very soon.
We have to stop comparing every Olympic team to the dream team.
Yeah.
We just have to stop it because they're not. I know people have tried to say this team has got more talent than the dream team, or they got more Hall of Famers than the dream team, or they got more this than the dream team. That I get why people try to do it, but here, look, let's just be honest here. The world is better than it was in '92.
Well, I mean,
that's number one.
They put up the graphic all the time of how many NBA pros were playing for other countries at that point in time, and it was a fraction of the number that are today.
Yeah, it's just the world is better now. So you're not going to dominate the way you did in '92. You're just not going to do it anymore. And we got to stop thinking, well, you got to be like, no. And that team was unbelievable. And a lot of those guys in '92 were still in their prime, except Larry Bird, who had the back of a 90-year-old man.
Right.
A lot of those other guys were still in their prime, and they hadn't yet achieved the things they were going to achieve later on. So, look, that team was different. You got to quit comparing everybody to it and just deal in the now, win your gold medal, get up there and hear the anthem and move on. The women, by the way, they might not ever lose again in the history of mankind. You see what they did the other night? Was Germany, right?
That's right. That was yesterday morning. Germany
could have had 10 women on the court and it wouldn't have mattered. It just, the U.S., the only team that beat the women's U.S. Olympic team is the WNBA All-Stars. That's it.
Yeah.
So we should be seeing basketball, both men and women, end up with gold medals. But again, the men are more vulnerable because just the world has gotten so much better at hoop. But I still think the men win. All right, we'll get back in here. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. Gosh, it's August 5th. It's the greatest day in the history of the world. Coming up from 1-800-GOT-JUNK here on the Halftime Show on the Game. All right, we're coming down the home stretch of our greatest moment in Gamecock history since 2000. Our Twitter X polls that we've been doing the last couple weeks. Our final poll runs all this week. It's only Monday. We got a long way to go here. But on the first day so far, over 400 folks have voted. We thank you very much. Over 3,000 people have viewed. And the Twitter poll right now is not even close. 2010 College World Series title for South Carolina over UCLA is number one at 61%. 2010 upset of Alabama, led by Steven Garcia, 18%. And then the 2011 College World Series title over Florida and the 2017 Women's National Championship are both sitting in third and fourth, 11 and 10%. Again, sponsored by our friends at Columbia Craft. And we appreciate those guys jumping in and sponsoring our little Twitter X poll, our best moment in Gamecocks history. Again, Columbia Craft, 520 Green Street in the Vista, famously hopped. Our greatest day in the history of the world, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Bunch of Olympic stuff on this day. Usain Bolt, consecutive gold medals in the 100. Also, other Olympic moments. Michael Johnson, back in 1997, won his third straight 400-meter title. That's at the World Championships. There's World Championships and Olympic stuff going on here. Usain Bolt was in the Olympic Games in London in 2012. Andy Murray won the gold medal in tennis in 2012, beating Roger Federer. The Williams sisters also winning gold in 2012. So a lot of Olympic stuff going on. Another one, and this is real old school Olympic moment, 1936. The famous Berlin Olympics, Jesse Owens on this day in 1936 wins his third of 4 gold medals, winning the 200 meters at the Olympics. Another moment from way back in the day, the first Boxing Hall of Fame election happened this day in 1954. 24 fighters were elected. Jack Dempsey, Joe Louis, Henry Armstrong. Iconic fighters who were put in on the first one. Also John L. Sullivan, Gentleman Jim Corbett, Jack Johnson, guys who fought way back. I mean, bare knuckles. They'd fight 50 rounds. It was crazy. So that's 1954, the first election for the Boxing Hall of Fame. Also on this day, 2007, Tom Glavine got his 300th career victory in an 8-3 win over the Cubs. It's one of those things, the way baseball is right now, and again, things are cyclical. But right now in the world of baseball, it feels like we're not going to see a 300-game winner again. It feels like it's going the way of the 30-game winner for a season. Because just pitchers don't go deep enough in games anymore to get 20 wins consistently. And again, wins really, and I won't lie to you, as baseball has evolved in the last 15 years, 10, 15 years, especially the last 10 years, I don't really look at wins and losses that much when I'm looking at stats on pitchers. Because the starting pitcher has so little control of wins and losses today. I mean, most starting pitchers are out in the 6th inning, and they're hoping the bullpen doesn't screw it up. So Tom Glavine getting his 300th victory on this day in 2007, I just can't think we're going to see another 300-game winner again for a long time. It's not the way the game is built now. I mean, for an example, you think about some of the graybeards we see now, the veteran starting pitchers who have won Cy Young Awards, who have been very successful. I mean, I'll just take, for example, Justin Verlander. Verlander, in his career, as good as he has been, he's won 260 games. And it feels like he's at the end. I mean, Verlander this year, he's 41 years old. He's started 10 games. Last year, he started 11 games. Year before that, 16. It just, it's pretty much at the end. He's not going to get 40 wins in his career. He's just not. And if you look at some of the other guys, like the Max Scherzers, they're not close to 300. I'm going to double check it, but if my memory serves me, Scherzer's in the 200s, I believe. Yeah, 216 career wins. Wins just aren't a thing anymore. So Tom Glavine got his 300th career victory in 2007 on this day. On this day in 2006, Warren Moon became the first black quarterback to be inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That year, also Troy Aikman, John Madden, Rayfield Wright, excellent offensive lineman for the Cowboys, Harry Carson, linebacker Giants, Reggie White, all went in that day as well, again in 2006. And one last one as we continue with baseball. On this day in 2013, Alex Rodriguez is suspended through the year 2014, 211 games total. Also, All-Stars Nelson Cruz, Johnny Peralta, and Verth Cabrera are banned for 50 games apiece. When Major League Baseball disciplines 13 players, basically for steroids/PEDs. I mean, these are guys that tested dirty after that first wave when steroids, then it became you can't do them and there's suspensions coming. Remember, when the Mark McGuires of the world started doing them, steroids were banned like in Olympic sports, and steroids were illegal to use in the United States, but there was nothing against them in baseball. There was nothing at the time. The only reason Major League Baseball got serious on steroids is because the feds busted the Balco lab on the West Coast. Then all of a sudden baseball went, what, steroids? We got to put an end to that. Baseball loved the steroid era. They'd have kept going with it if it wasn't for the federal government. Attendance were great. TV ratings were good. You had all these numbers being put up by all these people, and the feds screwed up. But this second wave of guys getting suspended, like A-Rod, Nelson Cruz, and Johnny Peralta, this was after baseball had to lay down the wood on steroid users. So that's this day in history, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK, greatest day in the history of the world. Let's get back to South Carolina. Coach Mike Furrey, talking to the media the other day, and again, Furrey has a lot of folks in that wide receiver room, and we're hoping to see a few of those to step up and be productive. Here's what Furrey's message was to his wide receivers.
I just talked to him a little bit ago, actually, and I just started off really by telling him that there's been unbelievable camaraderie in this room over the last 2 months. You know, the guys have been phenomenal. The relationships have been, we've built great relationships. There's a lot of respect for the room. There's, you got new guys, you got returners, you got transfers, you got freshmen. There's a lot of things that are going on, and our guys have done a great job of doing that. Starting tomorrow is going to be a healthy battle to compete for those 7, 8, 9 spots to travel. And what that's going to take is preparation. It's going to take producing, and that's going to start as we get going. And I think that's the best way to do it. Coach says it all the time: your reps create your reps. And sometimes when you don't have a room that has the talent or the depth, it's hard to stand to that, right? But when you do have room, I think that we have with the depth. That competition, those reps are going to create reps, and it's going to be able to, filter guys out. But at the same time, it's healthy, and the guys respect each other, and that's what I'm expecting from the room. And they push each other, and they help each other, and that's how we'll become a better.
Furrey's very interesting. There's been a lot of positivity on his recruiting, right? I mean, Vandrevius Jacobs basically said Furrey was the final piece of the deal to come to South Carolina. He was recruited before by the Gamecocks when he went to Florida State.
Right.
But he was like, he said, when I talked to Coach Furrey, that was the deal breaker right there, man. I was in.
Sure.
So, and we talked to him over at Birdie's for Beamer, and you hear him talk, and you look. He's a guy when we discussed like his career with him, Tyler. I mean, he's you name it. He's gone. Walked on to Ohio State, went on to a mid-major, was very successful. Just kind of was an undrafted rookie free agent in the NFL, carved out a career in the NFL. Heck, he was playing two ways for a little bit. Then he went to Detroit, put up some big numbers as a wide receiver, I mean, everything. I mean, he can pretty much relate to everybody.
Well, and the fact that he got to the NFL and succeeded there, led the NFC in receptions in 2006, is very attractive to a lot of these guys that want to get there and at minimum do the exact same thing. So he knows the path to get them there, and I think that's what attracts a lot of guys to him.
All right. Again, Mike Furrey, it's going to be very interesting to see how the wide receiver room progresses as we kick into 2024. Appreciate you watching. If you're checking us out on the Game TV, sponsored by Shepherd's Glass and powered by Integrated Media, thanks a lot for putting eyeballs on us at the Game TV radio. We'll get back in here, halftime show, wrap this sucker up with our Firehouse Subtext the Hour on the Game. All right, time for our Firehouse Subtext of the Hour. Terry Ford, Tyler Ed, Jay Phillips, slumming with us. There we go. Is that one? You got that turned on right?
I have it.
There you go.
There we
Look
go.
at you.
Well, I already hit the button. It's Tyler Head Sports Experience, man.
Yeah. Blaming Tyler for that problem?
Well, I already hit the button. Just saying.
Boy, how's that bus feel?
Yeah, you know.
You doing over there?
Hope y'all got the plate as it was driving around the
Just
corner.
saying.
All right, our handoff sponsor, like always, for Little Pigs, Alpine Road. All right, what do you got there on the old Firehouse Subtext of the Hour there, 803-446-6100?
We were talking about Mark Stoops earlier and his career record at Kentucky of 63-65. Jacob weighs in and says they had those 10 wins vacated in 21, which would have rose him to 73-65. He'd still be 20 games under 500 in conference play, so
Yeah,
I don't think that changes the narrative too much.
Look, again, we always give Mark Stoops credit. He cracked the code. Just go along and win yourself 6 to 8 every now and then, fall into something, and at a basketball school, just keep cashing checks.
Yeah. He's 9. It's a shade over $9 million that he's going to make this year.
And look, I'm not criticizing him. I wish I could fall into a gig like that. Don't we all?
That'd be great.
Yeah. I still think he's going to be Iowa's next head coach.
Oh, well, it would be perfect. He'd go win 8-9 games there. They'd be happy too, right?
They got to pry the job from parents' fingers one
I
day.
think that day's coming soon.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Heck, I mean, Stoops' offenses are explosive compared to what we've seen in Iowa in the last couple of years.
I mean, I think Iowa
Jeez.
would
Introduce them to the forward pass.
Yeah.
Just like, I love those shirts about punting is good or whatever it is in Iowa.
I mean,
Let's go punt.
Who's the last good Iowa quarterback? That's what I thought.
Oh, Chuck Long.
Who?
Remember, Chuck Long was at the Heisman Trophy ceremony.
It was him and Bo, right? That was 1985.
Yeah.
C.J. Beathard made it to the NFL.
He did.
Yeah, he hung out
And
as a backup.
we'll see if Will Levis has I think he can have an okay time at the next level.
I'm not a Levis guy.
He's doing all right.
I think he can.
But he plays for a team that plays boring football, so.
Yeah, I think he's a big arm and he likes to. What do you eat? What was that again?
Mayonnaise and coffee.
Yeah, he's good with mayonnaise and coffee, and he's got a big arm.
Yeah, I've still never tried the mayonnaise in coffee thing.
No,
I get it.
No.
I get it in terms of like how food works.
No, thanks.
Not for me.
Nope, I'll pass. You tell me how it is.
I just don't want the thought of any even hint of vinegar in my coffee is what
It doesn't do it. That's just no thanks. Oh, I didn't eat the banana peel too.
Yeah,
When
I don't think you're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
I don't think you're supposed to do
Not
that.
really.
Yeah.
See, that was the reason why his girlfriend broke up with him after the draft, not because he dropped, because of the mayonnaise and banana thing.
And she's like, "You're a weirdo. If he's a first round pick with that first round money,
Yeah, might be enough to stay.
he's eccentric.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're eccentric when you're a first round pick. If you fall out of the first round, you're a weirdo."
Get mold on your shower shoes. Yeah, well, anyway.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, Stoops, this whole Kentucky thing, we're going to talk more about it in a bit. So,
I give it. I'm not criticizing him.
Well, I mean,
If you can fall into what he's fallen
sure.
into, I give him credit. Now, again, the idea they were going to hire him at A&M, if that is true, which we heard that was until the backlash was so great and crazy that they switched gears, I would never hire him at A&M.
I mean, there was a headline in one of the Kentucky papers that said they were dragging us. Almost A&M coach Mark Stoops, penalized, and I don't know how close it came.
I'll tell you what. I don't think that would have been a good hire at all. I just don't.
Yeah, because I don't think there's any guarantee that he, is the guy that gives them the 2-game-a-year difference.
Well, what they won't admit is they thought they were hiring Bob Stoops, and they misread the first name.
And also say, Mark? Wait a minute, Mark? I thought we were getting Bob. The other thing about because there's that idea, right, that this other thing with Mark Stoops I give credit to. There's this idea, wow, if you put him at a place that cared about football and they had a lot of resources and he would be. See, I don't buy that.
No, not anywhere. But there's plenty. Like he wouldn't cut it at Florida. He doesn't play because at Florida you have to not only win, they want you to dazzle them and entertain them the way Steve Spurrier taught them that they could be dazzled. I don't think he could do it at Ohio State, despite being an Ohio guy. That's why I say. Look, he came up through the Iowa system, and they do care a lot about football, much more than Kentucky does, and that's why I genuinely believe that he'll be Iowa's next coach. And I don't think it'll be that much longer. I mean, what's Ferentz now? Early 70s?
Yeah, somewhere.
I mean,
around there.
I just don't. I mean, I'm not saying he can't do it anymore, but I think he needed to steer. They won 10 games despite all the crap, so he needs to kind of steer them into this new Big Ten era.
Yeah.
Ferentz is 69.
69.
See,
Okay,
look at
get him to 2 more years, maybe.
Yeah, 3 tops, 2. Yeah, and then you hand it off, and Stoops comes home, and everybody.
And he's there for 10 or 12 years.
And he wins. You know, he can pull 8, 9 wins, between 7 and 9 wins, and fall into a double-digit one every now and then.
They'll get a 10 win every couple of years.
Yeah, they'll be fine with that.
Yeah, every 5 years.
You score a touchdown every now and then, make everybody happy. What do you got coming up quickly?
A lot of soccer stuff, a lot of football stuff.
All right, good. It's post-game show next. Nice job, Tyler.